You know what's wild? Americans will argue about healthcare, housing, politics all day long. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that entire regions of this country are literally running out of water. Not in 50 years. Not eventually. Right now. And I'm not talking about some Mad Max hypothetical future. I'm talking about cities where they're telling you that you can only water your lawn once a week. Towns where the water bill tripled in 5 years. Places where they're literally trucking water in because the wells ran dry. The American West built cities and deserts and acted shocked when the water ran out. Brilliant. So today, we're going through 15 towns where water shortages have gotten so bad that people are actually leaving. Not because they want to, because they can't afford the water bills, can't keep their businesses running, or just got tired of watching their reservoirs turn into dust bowls. This is climate change translated into your monthly utility bill, and it's only getting worse. Let's get into it. Here's what's happening and why it matters. The American West is in a mega drought. The Colorado River, which supplies water to 40 million people, is at historically low levels. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are both so low you can see old towns and bodies that used to be underwater. That's not a metaphor. That's literal. Groundwater is being pumped out faster than it's being replenished. Farmers are drilling deeper wells because the shallow ones went dry. And climate change is making everything worse. Less snowpack in the mountains. Higher temperatures increasing evaporation. More extreme droughts lasting longer. The result is that towns and cities built on the assumption of infinite water are discovering that water is very much finite. And the towns losing this fight are the ones without political power, without economic resources, and without alternatives. Some of these towns will adapt. They'll invest in infrastructure, find new water sources, implement conservation. Others won't. They'll slowly depopulate as people leave for places where turning on the tap doesn't cost a fortune, or come with guilt about wasting a precious resource. The towns on this list are all experiencing this in different ways. Some have literal water emergencies. Some have pricing that's making water unaffordable. Some have agriculture collapsing because there's no irrigation water. And some are just watching their water supplies deplete while politicians argue about solutions. Number 15, Lubbock, Texas. Starting with a city that's pumping the Ogallala aquifer dry and hoping nobody notices. Lubbock sits on top of one of the world's largest aquifers. Problem is, they're using it about 8 times faster than it refills. Water levels have dropped hundreds of feet in some areas. And the city's response is basically let's keep pumping and hope for the best. Lubbock's water rates have increased significantly over the last decade. Agriculture uses massive amounts, and everyone's pretending the aquifer will last forever when scientists are saying it might not last another 50 years at current usage. Lubbock is where cotton and denial grow in equal measure. Number 14, Fresno, California. Fresno is the Central Valley ag hub that's slowly sinking into the ground. Because they've pumped so much groundwater out, parts of Fresno County are sinking by a foot or more per year due to groundwater depletion. Wells are running dry. Farmers are drilling deeper or abandoning fields. And residential water costs are climbing as the city tries to secure reliable sources. Fresno grows food for the country, but it's doing it by mining water that took thousands of years to accumulate. And when that water's gone, what's left is a valley full of expensive farming equipment and no water to farm with. Fresno is where your vegetables come from until they don't. Number 13, Odessa, Midland, Texas. The oil boom twins sitting in West Texas desert wondering where the water went. Odessa and Midland grew during oil booms. Population surged. Water demand increased. And nobody thought about where that water would come from long term. Now they're facing water supply challenges as the aquifer depletes and demand keeps growing. These cities also have oil and gas operations that use water for fracking. So you've got cities competing with industry for a declining resource. Water bills are rising. Conservation measures are being implemented. And growth is starting to strain against physical limits. Odessa and Midland found oil in the desert, but forgot to find water. Number 12, Reno, Nevada. Reno thought being close to the mountains meant water security. Turns out mountains with less snow means less water security. Reno's water supply depends on the Truckee River and Lake Tahoe. But with less Sierra snowpack and more demand from growth, the system is stressed. Water restrictions are becoming more common. Prices are increasing, and the city's having to invest heavily in conservation and infrastructure. Reno marketed itself as a cheaper alternative to California. But cheap doesn't mean much when you're limited on water usage and watching Lake Tahoe's levels drop. Reno is where the biggest little city might need to stay little. Number 11. Bakersfield, California. Bakersfield is the southern Central Valley city that's about to learn expensive lessons about groundwater depletion. Bakersfield's water situation is precarious. Agriculture uses enormous amounts. The city relies heavily on groundwater that's being depleted, and state regulations are starting to restrict pumping, which means farmers and cities are fighting over what's left. Water bills in Bakersfield have increased substantially. Some areas have wells going dry, and the agriculture economy that built the region is facing an existential crisis. Bakersfield is where oil came out of the ground and water disappeared into it. Number 10. Flagstaff, Arizona. Flagstaff is a mountain town that thought being at altitude meant they'd be fine. They're not fine. Flagstaff gets its water from underground aquifers and some surface sources. But drought, increased demand from tourism and growth, and climate change are straining the system. Water restrictions during dry years, rising costs, and officials warning about long-term sustainability. Flagstaff is beautiful and cooler than Phoenix. But even mountain towns in Arizona are dealing with water stress. And tourism makes it worse because you're supporting a seasonal influx of people who all need water. Flagstaff is where the pines are green and the reservoirs are low. Number 9. El Paso, Texas. El Paso is right on the Rio Grande, which you'd think means water. Except the Rio Grande is barely a river anymore in many places. El Paso depends on the Rio Grande aquifer water and recycled water. But the river is over-allocated and drought reduces flows. The aquifer is being depleted, and the city's had to invest massively in conservation and alternative sources. El Paso's actually been relatively successful at conservation, but that doesn't change the fact that they're in the desert with growing population and declining reliable sources. Water bills have increased, and long-term, the math gets harder. El Paso is where the river runs dry and the city runs on hope. Number 8. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Santa Fe marketed itself as an art and culture destination. Nobody mentioned the water problems. Santa Fe relies on the Santa Fe River and groundwater. Both are stressed by drought and demand. The river barely flows some years. Groundwater levels are dropping, and the city's implementing strict conservation measures and investing in alternative sources. Santa Fe's water rates are high and increasing. Growth is limited by water availability, and residents are being told to use less while watching golf courses and developments continue. Santa Fe is where the art is priceless and the water is too. Number 7. Las Vegas, Nevada. Vegas deserves special mention because it's literally a city in the desert that decided fountains and artificial lakes were good ideas. Vegas gets most of its water from Lake Mead via the Colorado River. Lake Mead is at historic lows. Vegas has done better than many cities at conservation. But when your main water source is a lake that's dropped over 150 feet, you've got problems. Vegas has implemented aggressive conservation, water recycling, and efficiency measures. But ultimately, the city exists because of agreements about Colorado River water. If those agreements change or if Lake Mead keeps dropping, Vegas has limited options. Vegas is where what happens in Vegas might include running out of water. Number 6. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix is the poster child for unsustainable desert growth. Phoenix has 6 million people in a metro area in the Sonoran Desert. Their water comes from the Colorado River, Salt and Verde rivers, and groundwater. All of those sources are stressed. The Colorado is at historic lows. Rivers depend on snowpack that's decreasing, and groundwater is being depleted. Phoenix has invested in conservation and groundwater banking, but fundamentally, they build a massive city in a place that can't support it without importing water from elsewhere. And those imports are becoming less reliable. Water bills in Phoenix are rising. Restrictions on groundwater pumping are coming, and new developments are being denied water certificates in some areas. Phoenix is where air conditioning keeps you alive and water might make you leave. Number 5. St. George, Utah. St. George is a retirement and outdoor recreation town running out of water, yet still building houses. It depends on the Virgin River and groundwater. The river's flows are declining with drought and climate change. The city's growing rapidly, creating a fundamental mismatch between water supply and demand. St. George has some of the highest per capita water use due to lawns and landscaping. The city promotes conservation, but growth continues. Officials hope for a pipeline project that may or may not get built. St. George is where retirees move for the sun and might leave for the water. Number 4. Tucson, Arizona. Tucson is trying to do water right in the desert, but trying and succeeding are different things. Tucson relies on the Colorado River, local rivers, and groundwater, all of which are stressed. The Colorado is unreliable, local rivers are seasonal, and groundwater has been overused for decades. Tucson has implemented strong conservation measures and rainwater harvesting incentives. Water rates have increased significantly, and the city works on aquifer recharge and efficiency. But ultimately, they're in a desert with declining water availability. Tucson is where they're trying to solve desert water problems with desert solutions. Number 3. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque sits on a major aquifer and has proceeded to drain it for decades. It used to rely entirely on groundwater. They've added Rio Grande water, but the aquifer is depleted significantly. Water levels have dropped hundreds of feet. While diversifying sources, desert growth remains a problem. Water rates have increased substantially. Conservation is encouraged but not always effective. The long-term sustainability of a metro area this size and this climate is questionable. Albuquerque is where Breaking Bad was filmed, and water is Breaking Bad too. Number 2. Coalinga, Central Valley Farm Towns, California. Coalinga and other small Central Valley towns are the canaries in the coal mine for California's water crisis. These towns rely on groundwater that's rapidly depleting. Wells are going dry, and residents truck water in. Entire communities are facing the possibility of becoming unlivable. Coalinga residents have seen wells run dry and water bills skyrocket. When connecting to municipal systems, agriculture is abandoning fields. These small towns lack resources to solve problems even big cities struggle with. This is the harsh reality when water runs out in small, poor towns. Nobody builds pipelines to save them. They just slowly empty out. Coalinga is where the American dream dies of thirst. Number 1. Lake Havasu City, Arizona. At number 1, the most absurd example of water insecurity. We have Lake Havasu City, a city literally named after a lake that's disappearing. Lake Havasu City exists because of Lake Havasu, part of the Colorado River system. Lake Havasu's levels are declining. The Colorado River is over-allocated. This city's identity and economy are tied to a water source becoming less reliable. Lake Havasu City attracts retirees and tourists for water recreation, except water levels are dropping. Marinas relocate. The long-term viability of a city based on a shrinking lake is obvious to everyone but those moving there. Water costs are rising. The spectacle of a giant lake in the desert is slowly revealed as unsustainable. The city's watching its reason for existence literally evaporate. Lake Havasu City is where you name your city after water that's leaving. So what does all this mean? First, the water crisis in the American West is real and accelerating. This isn't a future problem. This is happening right now. Towns are running out of water. People are told to conserve. Some places are becoming unlivable. Second, we build massive cities and agricultural systems in deserts. That was always going to end badly. The only question was when, and the answer appears to be now. Third, water is becoming a limiting factor for growth and habitability. Cities that can't secure reliable water won't grow. They'll shrink. People will leave. Businesses will close. We'll see climate migration within the United States. Fourth, this is expensive. Water infrastructure costs money. Conservation costs money. Finding new sources costs money. All of that gets passed to residents in the form of higher bills and restricted usage. And fifth, some of these towns won't make it. they'll depopulate, become smaller, or modern ghost towns. That's going to be a brutal economic and human reality. So there you have it, 15 towns where water shortages are making people leave. This isn't fear-mongering. This is observable reality. Reservoirs are low. Wells are dry. Water bills are skyrocketing. People are making rational decisions to move somewhere water isn't a constant crisis. The American West is beautiful, but beauty doesn't keep you hydrated. Cities build on the assumption of infinite water are learning that assumption was wrong. Some of these towns will adapt. They'll invest in conservation, find new sources, change their growth patterns. Others won't. They'll decline slowly as water becomes more expensive and less available, until living there just doesn't make sense anymore. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you live in one of these towns or are thinking of moving to one, you need to think seriously about water. Can the city reliably provide it? Can you afford it? Is the situation getting better or worse because water isn't optional? When it runs out or becomes unaffordable, everything else falls apart. So here's my question for you. Knowing what you know now about water issues, would you still move to Phoenix or Vegas or any of these places? At what point does affordable housing stop being worth it when water is the trade-off? Let me know in the comments, because this is one of the most important infrastructure and climate questions facing the country. And if you found this terrifying but informative, maybe subscribe. We cover housing, cities, and the uncomfortable truths about where we live. Someone has to talk about water before it's gone. Might as well be me.